Hello, everybody. My apologies for getting my OU Kansas State postgame on a little bit later than I would have liked. But if you watched my 3 picks on this very web page from Friday, you know that I'm not in Norman, Oklahoma. Matter of fact, I'm in the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Second time I have been here in the past 3 years. The wife and I have had a wonderful time. And yes, I have been to sports books, everybody, and won some, lost some. And I have had a great time with the wife. We have had so much fun checking out the scenes downtown Vegas as well as the Strip. And we are actually staying on the south side of Vegas at near the South Point Casino at the Grandview. So had a wonderful time, fantastic suite, great service. Highly recommend the Grandview of Las Vegas if you're ever looking for a resort to stay. And by the way, I am glad that I'm about 1,100 miles away from Norman, where I reside, because from what I heard Saturday night, apparent tornado that was not too far from my house, and one that did some damage apparently to Riverwind Casino. So things a little bit hectic in Norman land on Saturday, but my wife and I will be back in the Sooner State real soon. Talking about the OU Kansas State game, I tell you what, for the 4th straight game, it's drama for the Sooners. But unlike the previous 3 games, this one, the Sooners fell behind early. And matter of fact, at one point down 21-7, simply for 2 reasons. Number one, OU had no answer for Kansas State's ground attack, and we knew that very early on with that big Alex Barnes run. And you give K-State credit for taking the linebackers out of the equation on that play. And as I'm watching that run, on the big screen at the sports books, I'm thinking at some point some Sooner is going to track Barnes down, but that was never the case. In fact, Kansas State in that first half had 220 rushing yards. I mean, it was Alex Barnes, it was Alex Delton, the quarterback, the backup from Jesse Ertz, who again we did not see. But Alex Delton was really hurting the Sooners with his feet. And OU, I think they knew what was coming, but in the beginning just didn't have any answers for it. Now, conversely, on the other side of the ball, the only thing that Oklahoma has as far as a ground attack, that was Baker Mayfield. I mean, Mayfield, I think, had like 60 yards rushing in that first half, and everybody else was not a factor, not Anderson, although he would be later on. And Trey Sermon wasn't a factor either, not Dimitri Flowers. And it was so agonizing to watch that first half from a Sooner perspective offensively, because OU was able to move the ball, granted through the air, because Baker Mayfield had open receivers, and ended up being a good game for Marquise Brown, for Michael Jones, Mark Andrews, who I'll get into a little bit later. But the Sooners could not run to save their lives, and it costed them on a couple of 4th down plays. They were largely one-dimensional in that opening half. It was a disastrous first half. They get down 21-7, and when you look back in retrospective, Kansas State could have had more points in this game. Their second drive was deep into Sooner territory, and Stephen Parker fumble recovery stopped that drive from making it 14-7 at that time. It stayed 7-7. But the thing about this game, though, for the positive perspective, the Sooners never panicked. The players never panicked. And granted, Lincoln Riley was pretty pissed at halftime from what I heard. A guy that, when we see him on the sideline and in press conferences, in conversations, he's pretty well reserved, keeps his emotions in check, for a large part. But, he really got into his team at halftime. The Sooners got the message in the second half. And then we saw the Sooners on that opening drive down 21-10. We saw them move the ball and move it with a lot of authority. And that third quarter, they completely dominated, outgaining Kansas State, I think 220 yards to only 20 for the Wildcat offense. And the Sooner defense, by the way, made more of a commitment to stopping the run. I think OU at that point in the second half, down 21-10, saying, if we're going to lose this game, it's going to be because Kansas State's going to throw the ball like crazy. And they made more of a commitment to the run, like I said, did the Sooners. And the Wildcats ended up punting on several occasions in that second half, especially in the third quarter. And as the game wore along, you saw that OU was wearing out Kansas State a little bit, and Rodney Anderson, man, what a game for him, over 140 yards on the ground. You kidding me? Showed some athleticism, but the thing that impressed me the most about Anderson, he got that extra yardage, the yards after contact, that yak category that you hear so often, and it makes a big impact in a game like this. And Anderson, he got stronger as the game went along, and Sooners eventually got the lead at 28-21. Looked like they were going to add another score, and I'm not going to spend too much time on the following topic because I'm telling you, officials are going to miss calls, okay? But Kansas State's first penalty wasn't until 5 minutes left in the game. Whatever. All I have to say is whatever. But the Sooners have 28-21. Opportunity to add some more points. They're moving the ball again, especially on the ground, and we see the Sooners get called for a hold on the receiver, and that was a bit of an iffy call because both the receiver and the K-State defender were engaged in each other. They're both holding each other. Should have been a no call. So that was a little mysterious. And then I will give justification to the officials, though, on the Baker Mayfield play, in which OU tried a trick play, and then Mayfield gets hurried out of the pocket and then gets called for intentional grounding. That was the proper call. But Sooners had an opportunity to put the game away, in my opinion. The mishandled snap on the punt by Seibert. Snap was a little high, still should have retrieved it, though. And K-State had some momentum, and at that point, the teams played seesaw, back and forth, touchdown, 35 apiece. One big thing about this game, though, if you noticed that was different from other Sooner games, OU this time didn't blow their timeouts. They had 2 minutes to go. And keep in mind, they need a field goal to win it, but great clock management by the Sooners. Again, you can do that when you save your timeouts, and you can make the running game a factor when you're driving down the field. You don't just have to play the sideline with passes. Sooners still had a timeout to spare in the final seconds, already in field goal range, but they knew that they could still try to get a touchdown on the ground, and that's what happened with Rodney Anderson, who kept in bounds along the left sideline, and the Sooners put the game away 42-35. But K-State did not make it easy at all, and like I said, unlike the previous three Sooner games in which they got off to the great starts, but would either lose to Ohio State or just hold on for dear life against Baylor as well as Texas, this one, they had to play cardiac kids, and Baker Mayfield, my goodness, only 9 incomplete passes out of 41 throws, 32 of 41, over 400 yards, and Rodney Anderson, the big game. Mark Andrews, by the way, was a factor, 7 catches in the game, no touchdowns. I will say this about Andrews, and I'm sure you'll echo this with me too. If Andrews wants to be an impact player in the NFL, quit dropping passes. And the Kansas State game isn't the only game where we've seen that. Mark Andrews' ass will get cut so fast in the NFL, if that continues, it won't even be funny. He's very talented. He'll make an impact in the NFL, but only if he quits dropping those basic passes. It's that simple. So the Sooners, well, if you're keeping track of it, yeah, they're bowl eligible now. They're 6-1, 5 games to go. They'll get Texas Tech at home. First home game that Sooners have had in forever, it seems. Texas Tech's trending the wrong direction. Only 13 points at home against Iowa State. And by the way, the Cyclones just 2 wins away from bowl eligibility. Gotta like the Cyclones' chances because one of their games left is against Baylor. So a great opportunity for Iowa State to get to bowl eligibility perhaps. And that loss again to the Cyclones earlier in the month, yeah, it's damaging to the Sooners, but maybe a little bit easier to swallow. If on your schedule you see that your only loss came to a bowl team, that'll hold at least a little bit of respectability. Texas Tech again trending the wrong way, only 13 points at home to Iowa State. And at home is where, Tech usually racks up a lot, and I mean a lot of points, but not the case, as Iowa State, for the large part, had control of that game. For the Sooners, they keep their Big 12 hopes alive, and they remain at least in the equation as far as a college football playoff. I'm not expecting them to move up in the polls. I think they were at number 9 in both polls entering this game, but a loss would have been devastating for the Sooners, not just from the national championship perspective, but from the Big 12 perspective. Probably could have kissed that goodbye as well with 2 losses. And again, the Sooners still have tough games left to go. Next week, I'm not expecting them to be one of them, but down the road, of course, Oklahoma State, of course, TCU, who just continues to sizzle, and of course, you close out the year with West Virginia. So still some work left to be done for the Sooners, but they never panicked in this game, and they came from behind to beat a very determined Kansas State squad. And K-State, of course, they're going to need to get some victories if they need. They need to get some victories if they hope to be bowl eligible. Coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada. Again, final score: Oklahoma 42, Kansas State 35. The Sooners, big time when they needed to be. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time from the Sooner State. Boomer Sooner from Las Vegas.